$500,000 feels like a finish line. For most people, that is the number they spend decades working toward. But if you retire at 65 and spend what the average American retiree spends, the math turns uncomfortable fast. That money runs out before your 78th birthday. We modeled exactly how long $500,000 lasts across several different retirement scenarios. The difference between the worst case and the best case is nearly 60 years. The results will change how you think about what retirement actually costs. This analysis focuses on one central question. Given a fixed amount saved, how long will it last? We use $500,000 as the baseline for this analysis. That figure is above the national median for retirement savings, but it is a realistic goal for anyone who saves consistently over a long career. Financial planners cite it frequently as a meaningful benchmark. The calculation uses three inputs. The first input is spending. Bureau of Labor Statistics data tracks expenditures for households headed by someone over 65. The national average runs to about $52,000 a year. We modeled two versions. The high-spending version uses that national average. The low-spending version uses $30,000 a year, which is a sustainable retirement budget in lower-cost regions. The second input is Social Security. The average monthly retirement benefit is about $1,800. That payment changes how long savings last more than almost any other variable. We model both versions, with Social Security and without. The third input is what happens to the money itself. The first version holds the savings in cash and draws it down each month. The second version keeps it invested at a conservative return of 5% per year after inflation. The difference between those choices turns out to be the largest variable in the entire analysis. We will walk through the scenarios from worst case to best, because the comparison is what makes the numbers meaningful. This analysis is for educational purposes only and is not financial advice. The average retired American household spends about $4,000 a month. At that rate, the money runs out in about 10.5 years. That assumes no investment growth and no other income, just savings in cash, drawn down steadily. Someone who retires at 65 reaches the end of that runway. The end date falls at around age 75. Average life expectancy in the United States is about 76. A one-year buffer sounds like it might be enough, but life expectancy is an average, which means a large portion of the population lives well past it. Among people who reach 65 in reasonably good health, the odds of living into the mid-80s are significant. That runway does not cover 80. For most people in this scenario, the savings are gone before the later years of retirement arrive. What follows, whether family support, a government program, or part-time work, has to come from somewhere outside the original account. This first scenario is not a plan for retirement, it is a plan for the first decade of retirement and not much more. Whatever comes after that first decade needs to come from somewhere else entirely. The single biggest wildcard that most basic retirement calculations underestimate is healthcare. Fidelity Investments estimates that a couple retiring at 65 will face substantial out-of-pocket medical costs throughout retirement. The figure is over $300,000. That estimate includes Medicare premiums, co-payments, dental, vision, and the expenses that standard insurance does not cover. That amount represents the majority of the starting account. And it covers only routine care. A major illness, a cardiac event, or a cancer diagnosis can produce costs that exceed that benchmark by a wide margin. Long-term care is a separate consideration. A private nursing home room in the United States currently costs about $9,500 a month, according to Genworth's annual survey. A 2-year nursing home stay totals more than the entire starting account. These figures are not meant to discourage, they are context. Any retirement plan built around average spending figures needs a dedicated plan for healthcare. Without one, the actual financial runway is shorter than even the most conservative scenarios suggest. The second scenario reduces monthly spending to $2,500. That budget covers essential expenses in many lower-cost regions of the United States, including parts of the Midwest, the South, and rural areas with affordable housing. It also matches the typical monthly target for Americans who retire abroad to destinations such as Portugal, Colombia, and Thailand. At that spending level, the account lasts just under 17 years. Someone who retires at 65 reaches the end of that runway. The end date falls at around age 81. That is 6 additional years compared to standard spending. 6 more years of financial coverage in your late 70s is a meaningful gain. But the money still runs out. That age does not mark the end of a healthy retirement for most people. The frugal scenario does not solve the longevity problem. It buys additional time. What it does reveal is a powerful relationship between spending and runway. Every dollar of monthly spending reduction has a compounding effect on how long savings last, because it slows the depletion rate and leaves more capital carrying the account forward. Small reductions in spending produce larger gains in runway than most people expect. The first 2 scenarios deliberately excluded Social Security to isolate what savings can accomplish on their own. Now we add it. The average monthly retirement benefit is about $1,800 for a worker claiming at full retirement age. For someone with a typical earnings history, that figure is a reasonable baseline. Monthly spending stays at $4,000 a month. Social Security covers $1,800 of that. Savings only need to provide $2,200. At that lower withdrawal rate, the account lasts about 18.5 years. Someone who retires at 65 reaches the end of savings. The end date falls at around age 83. The improvement over scenario 1 is substantial. Social Security alone added 8 full years of runway to the same spending level and the same starting balance. 8 years from a single income source that most American workers have already earned. Timing matters significantly here. Claiming Social Security at 62 permanently reduces the monthly benefit. Waiting until 70 produces a substantially larger check for the rest of your life. For a retiree in this position, delaying Social Security is among the most valuable and most underused financial decisions available. The final scenario changes one variable. The savings stay invested rather than held in cash. We apply a conservative annual return of 5% after inflation. Total spending stays at $4,000 a month. Social Security covers $1,800 of that. The difference from scenario 3 is that the remaining balance keeps earning each year. Under those conditions, the portfolio survives for nearly 3 decades in most scenarios. That takes a 65-year-old well into their 90s. The classic benchmark for this type of calculation is the 4% rule. That rule describes the annual withdrawal rate at which a portfolio has a strong historical probability of lasting 30 years. Our monthly withdrawal exceeds the 4% threshold, which is why the balance still declines over time. But the investment return slows that decline enough to add roughly 18 years to the cash-only outcome. What makes the difference is compounding. The return on the remaining balance offsets a significant share of each year's withdrawal. Holding the same money in cash removes that offset entirely. The invested scenario is the same account, the same income, the same spending, and a fundamentally different financial outcome. Here is how all 4 scenarios compare. At standard spending with no investment and no Social Security, the money runs out in about 10.5 years. End date around age 75. The frugal scenario extends the runway by about 6 years. End date around age 81. Adding Social Security to standard spending extends the runway to about 18.5 years. End date around age 83. Keeping the money invested with Social Security in place produces nearly 3 decades of coverage. End date well into the 90s. 3 patterns stand out from the data. The first is that Social Security timing is among the highest leverage decisions available to most retirees. The same starting balance and the same spending, but with the average monthly benefit added, produces a gap of 8 full years of runway. The second is that investment growth is the most powerful variable in the model. The gap between holding savings in cash and keeping it invested, at the same income and the same spending, is roughly 18 additional years of financial security. The third is that $500,000 is a beginning, not a guarantee. In every scenario that excludes investment returns, the account runs out before a healthy retirement is likely to end. If you are planning for retirement, these scenarios suggest that what you do with your savings after you stop working may matter as much as the balance itself on the day you retire. $500,000 is a real milestone. But this analysis also reveals why financial planners frequently cite $1 million as a more comfortable target. Doubling the starting balance eliminates most of the runway concerns that appear in these scenarios. At a doubled balance, a monthly draw of $2,200 represents a very low annual withdrawal rate. At that level, historical data suggests the portfolio does not simply survive, it grows. The gap between adequate and secure is smaller than many people assume. But reaching it requires getting 3 decisions right. The balance at retirement, whether that balance stays invested, and when Social Security is claimed. Optimizing all 3 matters more than the exact account size on the day you stop working. If this kind of retirement math is useful to you, subscribe. We run the numbers on the financial decisions that most people never stop to calculate. Every dollar has a story.